Hello, welcome back to Quadratic. Today on the shelf we've got two different components because we're going to be doing a build today. This is going to be super easy, literally only two things you need to buy if you've already got battery and a receiver and a transmitter as well. So we're going to be using the Eachine Stack X, which is really sort of a nice advancement in the technology that we'll be seeing with quadcopters. However, it has had sort of hit and miss reviews. Some have said it's been great, some have said it's not been that well, so that's probably down to the quality control with Eachine, I reckon, because they're not always the best. But 1080p recording and a really nice HD camera on there, high amp ESCs as well, and supports up to 6S. So I mean, on paper this thing looks great. And we'll also be going to using 3B's frame with motors in there as well. So this is a frame and motor kit, the 3B-R 211 racing frame. So we're going to go ahead, check those on the bench, and do a build in this video, and then we'll probably get onto flying it next video. So let's check out the components and build our quad. Okay, so here is what is essentially the heart of this build, the Eachine Stack X F4. Now, like I said, there's been a lot of varying reviews of this. Some people saying it's great, some people saying it's terrible, and so we're going to have a look and check out what this is like. This does, however, come, this is obviously, you can see the camera, this is the DVR on the top. This does come by itself, so if you want to do this build but use your own FC and ESCs, then you can go ahead and just purchase this nice 1080p DVR by itself. So we'll quickly take a look at what's in the box. You'll notice we don't have the XT60 plug on here. That's because we have to solder it on ourselves. So it comes here with a lot of extra standoffs, some high gauge wire to solder onto there and put our XT60 plug on, a tiny little bit of heat shrink, and then two antennas, little whip antennas with the pigtails on there, and these are just going to attach, well, one of these, sorry, will attach onto here, and then we've got a nice spare one, which is a good touch. So anyway, getting back onto the stack itself, you'll notice it's a 3-tier stack. On the bottom we have the PDB and ESCs all built into one, so you'll be able to see we can put our XT60 plug on here, and this takes 2 to 6S lipos, so it's pretty much everything you're going to need for the minute. And now attached to that is the ESCs. As you can see, we'll solder our motors onto here, and this is rated at 35 amps, so that is really quite high. Hopefully we're going to get some nice performance on this and really be able to max this out on 5 or 6S on those higher battery ratings. So that's nice to see, quite a high ampere ESC on there as well. And this supports up to D-Shot 600, so not the latest, not the absolute latest technology by any means, but definitely still quite good. So moving on to the second thing in the stack, this is actually the FC with the built-in video transmitter in there. This is an F4, not an F3, so it's a little bit newer, and I believe it's running Betaflight 3.2.0 is what is flashed in there. So you may need to update that if you're running the latest Betaflight. Of course, this has on-screen display, so we're going to be able to get all the things we want to get the readouts from our quad, such as the current, the voltage readings and things like that, and the current battery readings. So that's nice. We've also got, as I said, built-in video transmitter. This is switchable between 50 and 200 milliwatts, and also what's nice, you can do this, I believe, through your radio. So there's no needing to go pressing buttons on the quad all the time. You can simply switch this up. Although this is still going to be illegal in the UK, which is a bit annoying because you need 25 milliwatts, and especially if you're doing anything racing over here, we're flying with other people, there's strict limits on the 25 milliwatts. So this has got 40 channels at obviously 5.8 gigahertz and the video transmitter, and it is switchable all the way up to that 200 milliwatt, which is quite useful. It's got a FR Sky Smart port on here if you want to use that, which is UART 1, I believe, and of course an S-Bus input, which is already soldered on here, so we can go ahead and connect our receiver onto there as well. And this thing is really light, just feeling it in my hands. I think it comes to probably about 30 or 40 grams, just the stack by itself, and then of course the camera is probably a bit heavier than that. But yeah, this does feel really light. It does feel, I'm not going to say flimsy, but as not as sturdy as I'd like for this price tag. But you know, we'll go ahead and test that out. Maybe that's why we've got a lot of spare standoffs in the case, because maybe some of these might break. They are quite tall standoffs. I think it's a bit unnecessarily tall, if you ask me. You could easily half that height on there and still have enough clearance for all the wires and stuff. So yeah, a bit weird, and it might make the quad look a little bit odd, a little bit bulky, but nevertheless, it's still pretty decent. And we're going to move on to the top one, which is obviously, you can see it's connected to the camera. This is the DVR, so no more recording through your goggles on that 640 by 480 resolution, which most of them are, because now we have 1080p recording, and you can see here we've got the memory card slot. This is where the memory card is going to have to go, so that is a bit annoying if you want to record on both. Now you're going to need 2 memory cards. Usually you just need the one for your goggles, obviously, but you know, they're pretty cheap nowadays. Although make sure you get a high enough rating one, because this can record, as I said, 1080p, and it also records 60 FPS. Apparently, I don't know if that's interpolated or not, or that is full 60 FPS. So we'll have a quick analyze of the DVR footage when we come on to the next video. But nevertheless, yeah, I'm really impressed. This sounds really good, especially that 1080p 60 FPS. That just sounds almost too good to be true, and coming from Eachine from China, chances are it probably is too good to be true, but we're going to test it out anyway. Obviously, there's going to be some issues with latency here, so I think, you know, if this is going to be wanting to run sort of a 6S incredibly fast quad, racing quad, it might struggle a little bit with the latency. However, if you're just going to be doing some sort of lazy acro flying, going about in parks and stuff, the latency on this should be fine. I should say that while it does record in 1080, I do believe the video output is actually stepped down to 480p, so you're not going to be getting 1080p to your goggles, which should again reduce the latency on this. So that sounds like it'll be quite good. You know, records locally as 1080p, and then it will record also onto your goggles and obviously transmit to your goggles in 480p, which should be quite good. And obviously that's NTSC or PAL switchable on the device and probably on your goggles as well. So latency might be a problem, might not be. We'll take a look at that and see once we come on to building it. So okay, and so here's the frame. It's nicely packaged. You'll see in the top here we've got all of the carbon fiber components. This is using 3mm carbon fiber, and also a couple of these little, if I can get them out, these little machined aluminium. There we go. So these are just going to be additions to the frame aesthetics and creating that little sort of housing a little bit on the top. And then inside, taking a look, we've got our gem fan props, which have these little wingtips on them, which look quite nice. These are, you can see. So you can see there that they are gem fan props, and as you would see on here as well, they are 51-52 size, and these are going to go nicely with the motors that we got, which are also included in this package, which are the 3B branded motors, again, BBB or 3B or however you want to say it. If this will focus on these motors, there we go. So nice and purple again. And like I mentioned earlier, these are 2206 2500 kV motors, and so yeah, hopefully these should be good. Paired with that 35 amp ESC, these should be quite nice and pack a punch as well. We've got the 4 nuts in there as well, the little bolts to attach the props on. We've also got what looks like 2 battery straps, and then all our little nuts and bolts and different attachments in here as well. So let's go ahead and put it together. Okay, and so here is, we put it together, more or less most of it. It's pretty easy frame build. You see, we just sandwich the arms between these 2 plates here and then build our stack on top of that. I've gone ahead and taken out the really large, quite long offsets, the tall ones, because otherwise this stack would have just been way too tall and not been able to fit within the build. I've also gone ahead, you'll notice I've put the motors on. I've actually soldered these and wrapped the wires underneath, so it looks a little bit tidier on there with the motor wires coming underneath the ESCs. We've also soldered the XT60 plug on the back here and put our little pigtail antenna, connected it just in there when we've been building it up. Don't worry about your soldering. You can tell my soldering is absolutely atrocious. So long as you've got a good join on there and you haven't got it touching anything else or any other parts on the board and no other solder sort of spilling anywhere, then it should be fine. So we're going to go ahead build the rest of the frame. I'm hoping that this massive camera is actually going to be able to fit on here. It's going to be a bit annoying if it isn't, and then we'll go ahead and put our receiver on as well. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so this took a hell of a lot longer than expected, but here it is for now, and it is absolutely nowhere near perfect. I've had quite a few problems setting this up, a few of which I'll show you now. You'll notice that it just about fits. I had to cut down the standoffs, the top screw part of these standoffs for here, and also not put any bolts on those because it wouldn't fit with this top plate on. So even trimming down the stack and using the shortest standoffs possible, still too big for this frame, and I think probably quite big for all frames really, unless you've got a really big thing, really big frame that's not sort of trying to look sleek at all. This Stack X is going to be a bit large because it's just not fantastic. You know, it's there's only so far you can actually squish down these components as well, because they've got a lot of gaps in between them, and I think it does speak a little bit about the design perhaps of the Stack X, especially with the huge camera. You'll see I've not been able to, for some reason it's got the holes on the front where you would attach the screws, so of course I'm nowhere near those and I can't fit those on, and it would be tricky, I'd imagine, to fit this on many builds really, unless you're top mounting the camera. Most builds that just go for sort of a Swift or a camera like that is going to be fitting here is not going to fit this in at all, which is a real disappointment. I've managed to just squish it in and put a couple bolts in the side, a couple screws in the side, and just hold it in there for now. But of course it doesn't look perfectly straight, and I'm not convinced how well this is going to fly and be able to stay in there without wobbling at all. So bit skeptical about that, but again, terrible design flaw on Eachine's part. I know of course if it's 1080p 60 fps they're going to have a bigger camera, but the fact is, you know, they could have put these screws probably in the middle, and then, you know, there'd be no problem there. That would have been able to fit, and also sort of designed this to fit standard builds a bit better, because you'll notice normal cameras are obviously a lot wider. They're quite thin at the front, you know, that's got pretty much the same lens size, but then this is square all the way down, or rectangular, sorry, whereas this one really opens up and manages to go on either side of your frame, whereas this one you'll see there's still a big gap between the frame and the camera. So unless Eachine is also making their own frames to go with this, then this might be a bit hard to fit on most builds, especially when you've got something standard as well that's not going to be able to fit the height of this stack in, and also fit the thickness or thinness of this camera, and as well as how far back it goes as well, with those screw holes on the side there. A little bit of trouble I had, you know, putting these aluminium bits in. You'll see I had to actually hold it with a pair of pliers to screw this in, and these actually ended up losing their sort of the thread on the top bit, so the Allen key just slips out now, so they're pretty much stuck as they are, and they're not even fully screwed in, but I can't unscrew these or screw them in tighter, which is really annoying. So bit of a disappointment on both sides, on the frame side and also the Eachine Stack side, although of course we've had a lot of mixed reviews, a lot of good reviews about this camera and DVR quality, so I'm still excited to test that. I'm hoping this is going to be able to fly for more than 30 seconds, so we're going to go ahead and test that in the next video. Notice I've not put the receiver in yet though. I'm hoping we might be able to slide it down here in the middle and have a bit of room under there, because if not then I'll probably have to mount it on the top, because there's nowhere else that this is really going to go, so that'll probably just have to go up there like that. But anyway, we're going to go ahead, test it out on the next video, test out that DVR quality as well, that 1080p 60 fps. Hopefully it's not interpolated, hopefully it really is real 60 fps, but I'm not convinced about that. So anyway, a little bit of a disappointing build, probably not one to recommend using these two components together, but I really like the look of this frame. It's quite sleek, quite nicely designed, so if you've got your own components in there, pretty standard components like you would on a normal build that is going to fit in that height, and obviously any normal camera will fit in there as well, then this is going to be a nice looking frame, and hopefully these motors are going to be quite powerful as well. We'll have to test them out in the next video. So anyway guys, thanks for stopping by. Links in the description if you want to check these parts out, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.